Yeah.
Well, looks like we have all the committee members here, so I'll call this April meeting of the Executive Finance Committee meeting to order at 8 o'clock. I can certify that open meeting law requirements have been met. You see a 13-item agenda in front of you.
I'll move to adopt.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Any comments, questions, corrections, changes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Okay, number 4, adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting, which were mailed to us.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Anybody have any changes or anything they'd like to make to those? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, since this meeting is being broadcast, we will now give a couple of minutes for public comment. If you would like to call in and have any comments, the number is 715-538-1770.
Meeting with a break of silence like coughing.
We'll all look at you with that.
I know, I don't want to do that.
Pretty quiet this morning.
I'm holding back a sneeze myself.
You can catch us all on it.
Yes, when you're waiting, yes.
It's about a lot faster than the Amish minute. Their minute could be an hour. Stop here for a minute. What?
Do they carry any kind of wristwatch or clock?
There's a pocket.
Okay, we've given people a couple of minutes. If you still have a comment, you can call in if you'd like. Paul, sales tax update?
Yes, our receipt this time was $165,826.30, which compared to last year at $152,000 and $158,000 the year before, it's higher than both of those. So sales tax is still higher in the COVID year than other years.
Good job. Keep it coming. Been twisting arms or what?
No, I haven't been doing anything. I suppose we've all been doing our part, buying stuff, but.
Have you contacted other county or talked to any other counties about it?
Oh, I could have brought that with. I had a thing that showed for the whole state comparisons. I think most places are all higher.
Most of them are
Yeah.
up. People are still spending money.
Yes.
Okay,
Ordering it.
what's that?
They're ordering.
Yeah, they're ordering, yeah.
Ordering online, yeah, that's some of the stuff.
Okay, any other questions for Paul about sales tax? Okay, Paul, you'll take the general fund then also?
And there actually was no change from last month, so we're still at 2,091,954.70. So it's the same as last month. There was no changes.
Okay. Okay, any questions for Paul about the general fund? Okay, moving on. Samuel's Group Venture Building Project updates.
Brian.
Morning, everyone.
Yep, and is Brian up on, yep, Brian's there too. You can handle it.
Did you want Brian to go first?
Nope,
or-
nope, doesn't matter. You can
No?
go, or unless Brian wants
Does Brian
to.
have anything? Because he was just going to be on if you needed him.
Okay, no. I do have some questions for Brian maybe that we can get to, but just want to give everybody an update. I want to begin by apologizing that at the last board meeting, if I brought up topics that weren't on the agenda, it wasn't my intent. So I wanted to bring some information to this committee, and then if we want to do it to the property committee, I guess I would look for some direction so that as we move forward, we're doing it appropriately, and I didn't want to put you guys in a spot like that. And if I ever do, we'll push it to the next meeting, so I apologize for that. But the one main thing that I do need to figure out how we're going to approve or if we're going to approve would be the ODIP. There's a timing perspective associated with that. That means that as we consider the ODIP and when we would approve it, then a representative from the county does need to have a meeting with the state to identify what that workers' comp situation would look like and the paperwork that would need to be filed. It takes about a month to 45 days to get everything in order after I talk to Vance. And as we start to near bid pack 1, the demolition portion of the project will not be included because that's just prepping the site. Then the footing and foundation package would be included in the owner direct insurance program. So if you take action, I don't know if it would be a recommendation by this committee or by the property committee and then to the board for approval. They would also need to identify a representative from the county that would represent the county in meeting with the state. Now, they haven't been doing that in person because of COVID. Typically they do. Typically it's a trip to Madison to talk to the representatives about it. They've been doing it with Zoom or Teams. I don't know exactly which one they're doing, but they are doing it virtually. I've seen where the county clerk is tagged with that task of being that representative. I've also seen it where it has been a county administrator if the county has that position, and sometimes it's a county board chair. Is typically who I've seen. So that would be the topic of discussion of who the representative you would want to have. And on that virtual meeting, because it is virtual, they have made it available to other members of the board if they want to sit in and listen to the discussion. But again, it's no additional risk to you as the county. It's just a management process to be able to potentially recoup some savings or some dividends on the workers' comp portion for the construction project. So, is there any questions that you guys all have related to that, or I know
Would
we
you
talked
like
about
some
it.
action on that today, or is
I
not
would
necessary?
I would like that if we could.
I would move for approval of the ODIP.
No, second.
Well, okay, I guess we got to decide who's gonna,
Well, we can.
First we gotta approve it.
okay,
No,
okay.
recommendation, there's no resolution or anything like that, so recommendation? Yes, definitely recommend.
And to be acted on by the county board, is that the?
Yeah. Even though there's no money involved, that's part of the construction thing, it should go to overall.
And Kurt, if this committee approves it, and then it goes to the county board, you would get action on it until April 20th, is that soon enough?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, we'll make that work. What I would do is I would probably have Vance tee up and get the meeting scheduled for right after the 20th. And then if it wouldn't happen, then we can just cancel it, but at least we'll get it on their docket so that we could turn it around quickly. So,
Okay, any further discussion on the
I can get you
ODIP
one. Yeah.
resolution? Recommendation. Okay, so hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Should we take care of who's going to represent us then?
John, Paul?
One of the two.
You want to arm wrestle for it?
We'll tag team.
Or maybe do both of you even? Both of you may want to attend it. Okay. Does that sound good to everyone then? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Then I see you have an item on here about the groundbreaking.
Yeah, I guess it's one of the things that we can discuss on a timing, and I don't need a decision today, but I wanted to give you what I thought would be a good time. Because, let me just give you an update and I'll get to the groundbreaking. So the demo bids for the school across the street are due tomorrow, meaning that they'll show up in Paul's office tomorrow, and then property meets on Thursday to open them up. Then we would look for approval from property to get that demo started. The asbestos abatement, the DNR permit has been submitted and is ready to go. That asbestos abatement should take place later this week and into next week. So then after the award of the demo contractor, then they would start the demolition of that building after the asbestos abatement is done, after you guys can get the notification out to the public about if they want some memorabilia to work through Jeremy, that sort of a thing. So I would anticipate that the demolition of that building would be done by the end of April. And at that point is when I would think we would want to look at a groundbreaking for the new building, because then we would get that old building out of the way. While I have the excavator there, we'll have them put a nice pile of dirt there so that you're not all digging in real hard soil, that you can dig some soft soil. And then we can find a time that last week of April if that would work for everyone. Whatever works for the board, whoever you want to have in attendance, let me know, and then we have our staff, Shelley from our office, does a lot of coordinating with your staff, can kind of take the lead on that and get things coordinated with your team, the departments, and kind of get notifications out to the public on your behalf. It's just part of the process so that we can give you guys the information. So I would recommend sometime the last week of April. So.
A question came up, I ref with Dave Pentock, and he runs Tri-City Sanitation, and he had a question, is there something with different kinds of concrete in there that may have to be disposed of differently?
No, I think one of the contractors was asking about potentially grinding some of the concrete, so whether they grind the brick in the
Okay.
block, and then if they would grind the concrete that's in there. So you do have poured concrete, and then you get the brick and block
Oh,
in
okay.
regards to how they dispose it. He was actually there at our walkthrough, so
Okay.
he had asked the question because he was
Okay.
talking to some of the vendors about where they could dispose of their
Yeah,
stuff
that
there.
question, he was asking about that.
Yep.
So you are aware of his?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
sounds good. Okay, so let's see, are we gonna have to set a date for that, or?
I don't think you need to set the date to date. If you could have it on the agenda for the county board would be
Okay,
nice.
okay,
I think if a committee could recommend it to the board, then the board can make that decision. Then you guys can decide who you want to have as part of that
I
groundbreaking.
think we'd like to have the whole board on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because.
Obviously, I don't know if, most of your meetings are during the evening, right? So it would be nice the groundbreaking's going to be during the day. Find a time when most of them can attend. That'd be good.
Well, and actually, our April board meeting is during the day also.
Is it?
The 20th,
Oh, that's probably a little early.
What was the time frame we gave them for demolition?
I told them they needed to be done by the end of the month.
Oh, okay.
So by the end of the month, they may have some materials there they're still hauling out, but they're supposed to be done by the end of April.
So some action, we'd have to set a date at the county board meeting, so Paul will put that on the agenda. And we can probably even have a date in mind.
That'd be great.
Because if we're gonna do it, we should have it publicized too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hear that,
That
Debbie?
would have to get to the paper.
Yeah, that would have to get to the
Earlier.
paper by the day after the county board meeting, probably.
Then back for kicking those.
Okay.
Okay, so anything else on the groundbreaking? Okay, anything else for us?
I do. Just want to give you an update on the agreement with the city about Park Street. So I met last week with Rick Niemeyer and well as Chris Gerhardt, who is the attorney for the city. There's a draft that has been put together by Rick. I don't think Chris has reviewed it yet. But what it does is it lays out the agreement in regards to the closure of Park Street and then the utility relocation. So you're going to see a portion of the agreement that is a written narrative about what happens to the property responsibilities of each party. And then we have an exhibit, which is the draft or the start of the utility relocation. So it's been very it's been very smooth in regards to the relationship with the city, because they've talked to us with their engineers. They're currently working on a design of Hobson Street, so they've actually engaged their engineer from SEH to work with the engineers from Venture, and it's worked out very well in regards to what would be done and where things would be relocated. One of the things that will be in the agreement that you will see after the attorneys have reviewed it is that the water main actually has to be reworked all the way up Hobson Street, but the city's doing that. It's not something that the county's doing. But because of the timing of when we need to get into Hobson Street and rework a portion of the utilities from Park to Main, we're going to look at from a sequencing perspective that the contractors for the Justice Center will actually put that water main in for that portion of the street. And when we bid it out, we'll have the contractors put a value to that. So that would be something that would then go back to the city for the water main relocation. But rather than put it in, us put our utilities in, pave it, and then they come back a year later and they tear it up. It's just a coordination issue. So we'll identify that. So it's been great working with them in regards to getting through all of that. We're targeting to get that in front of the county board to approve it on the 20th. And then the city would look to take action on that after that, so that we would have that in place by the end of April as well. So things are moving along well on that.
Question.
Go ahead.
Way back when the property committee was first considering all this and negotiating with the street, there was some concern about gas and electric. So you mentioned water mains. Any concern about gas and electric, or tying that off, or shutting things off, and all that?
No, everything that is in that street right now actually feeds the Justice Center, so it's going to be a coordination effort of when we take it out and where we relocate it. There is some fiber in there, and then there's some telecommunications that they're working on as well, but those also feed the Justice Center. So it'll just be a coordination effort from that section of Park Street. So,
Jeremy, you're in touch with all this stuff, and you know.
Well, between working with Park and
Yeah.
then, like I said, talking to the guys that are coming out marking stuff, and the only person I haven't talked to was Mark from the city. But like I said, they know a few things have been shut off over there, but I'm staying as informed as possible.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, hearing none. Anything else then?
I do have a couple other
Okay.
things, just to bring you all up to speed. We are still targeting that bid pack 1 would be ready to go out on the street towards the end of April. That's when our footing and foundation package would go out to contractors. And then those bids would come back 2 weeks after we issue that. And what I need to find out from this group and then the property as to how you want. What I typically will see is that there will be a committee that would approve those bids. Okay, so on bid day, we're going to get multiple bids in. We'll have a public opening, probably in this room, where we'll get the envelopes. We'll read them out loud on behalf of the county. We then will go back and qualify the bids. So by qualifying, we call a low bidder, make sure that they've got all of the scope included, make sure that they've got the bid bond required and all of the information that's there. We then will come back to the committee with a list of recommendations, because we're going to break it out into smaller bid packages, so there'll be multiple contractors, and we'll come back and identify what we qualified. If there's a company that we wouldn't recommend, the reason for why we wouldn't recommend them, because that's something that needs to be done with a lot of detail, especially when you're dealing with public bids. But then we would come back to the committee, and the committee would then approve those bids. We do a summary to make sure that we're still aligning with the overall project budget, because what happens is we will assign a line item to a budget. They're not always exact, one's high, one's low, but we'll give you the nature of if one's extremely high, one's extremely low, how are we targeting for our overall project. It's a long-winded way of asking you, is that this committee that wants to approve those bids, or is it the property committee that wants to approve those bids? And I was going to ask the same thing of the property committee when I met with them. Typically, it's been a property committee. I have had a time where that the finance committee has been involved, but I've only seen that the finance committee gets involved if we're having issues that are budget related. If we're within the budget, they've already identified that, and it's been given to the property committee to manage. And I know you haven't had those discussions, but I wanted to get it on the table for you to consider. And if that's a board action item, we would get it on the board's agenda as well, or if that's a committee action item, not sure how you want to handle that. So
And these bids are due, when did you say?
these ones, we won't have bids until sometime in May.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we wouldn't necessarily need a special meeting.
This is gonna be a continuing thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just
Yep.
Phase 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
So there's gonna be several different bids.
Mhm.
But we made kind of a decision before, like the property.
Turn your mic on, John.
I think it should go to property committee because, you know, it can't go to our full committee we had for, that's just too many people. Property committee is a nice committee to bring it to it. It's already been approved that unless there's a change in the financial amount,
Right.
it shouldn't have to come to this committee.
Yep. Yep, there were issues that we would be having budget constraints, then I would see it come back here.
Yeah.
But just so we were all on the same page, that's kind of what I anticipated, so, okay.
Okay, and like we said, there's property committee later, meeting later this week, where we can deal with that then.
Yep,
I don't know if this, I agree with John. I mean, I just want to get my 3 cents in here.
Yeah, I think it's Thursday is your meeting, right?
Right.
Yep,
It'd be better to have one committee acting on one key committee, and that would be the property committee. If too many committees involved, and it gets, you know, like you said, it's going to be bid package 1, bid package 2. I mean, this is, it's just too complicated and too
Right.
cumbersome to try to go through a lot of committees for many different packages. So if this committee, I don't know if we need an action from this committee or agreement to essentially to delegate those decisions about awarding bid contracts to the property committee, or is there any discussion on that?
I don't know.
I can make that motion. I make a motion that the bid contract openings go to property committee.
I'll second that.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments? Hearing none, all those.
I just.
Go ahead, George.
I think Kurt's created this image, which is kind of exciting, which is the bid openings. My guess is that there may be an opportunity for public viewing, you know, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And it's a way of keeping the public involved, knowing who it is that's making these decisions, you know, once the property committee is assigned, I think, and they've been on the ground, they know what's been going on from the beginning. We just
Mhm.
sort of get the updates.
yep.
And as long as there's no expenditure,
Right.
we should be good with that then.
It's an open committee meeting. If any other board member wants to come, they can come.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions about giving the property committee the right to open the bids? Okay, hearing all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay,
One last thing, and then
Go
I'll be
ahead.
quiet. So the renovation portion of the project, we did get a draft of that back to the department heads, not last week, the week before. Venture is tweaking some of that, and then we plan to take that before the Building Oversight Committee and the Property Committee on the 8th for their suggestions and recommendations, but then that will come before you, the board, for approval. It'll probably be a couple options in there in regards to where departments are. I think Venture's done a really good job of fitting the spaces into the square footage that you had. What happened is when they brought the ADRC back into the fold, we're doing our best not to renovate portions of the jail because it's expensive. We're going to use a majority of that for storage because you do have a need for storage, and it'd be easier to use that space for storage rather than paying to have other storage areas used. And then if you have to go in and demo a jail, it's just very expensive to just take out the interior walls. So Venture has done a good job of using the square footage that you have to be able to move departments in spaces where we're limiting some of the renovation in certain areas and reusing walls. Other areas we're having to do a little bit more extensive, but it's getting departments where they need to be in regards to the flow from the public. And I think they've done a good job, and when you see it, I think you'll agree with me. But that's going to plan to go before the committee, both property and building oversight on the 8th, and then it'll be before you, the full county board, to take action on it this month. So,
Can I have a quick?
go ahead, George.
That's just about the last thing that's going to be done.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
So we're year and a half, 2 years?
Oh, yeah.
on that?
We're going to have roughly 2 years of construction on the Justice Center. Then once we get them moved into there, then we're going to come back and do the renovation.
Okay, I just want to be clear on that.
There will be some mechanical, electrical connections and ties that need to be made to the old structure, the existing structure, but then the rest of that work's going to be done after we occupy the Justice Center.
So we'll have some of the most secured storage in the state, huh?
That's right. That's right.
Make it a mausoleum.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Kurt? Okay, moving on then. Discussion action on county debt service. Brian Riley. Brian, can you hear us?
Indeed, can you hear me?
Yep.
I think primarily just left this as a placeholder on the agenda in case there were any questions. I could certainly provide some updates. I haven't prepared anything other than just present for any inquiries that you might have.
I have none.
I have one, where's Paul? So, there he is, directly behind me. The board passed an authorizing resolution for the 43.5 million. Isn't there another resolution? I've forgotten what it's called. The formal resolution that should come up. Paul?
Yes, there will be. Brian can talk about that.
Wait, Brian, could you talk about that?
Yeah, so the authorizing resolution essentially states your intent and gives notice to the public of that intent, and then establishes a not to exceed amount. On the day of the next county board meeting, so April 20th, there will be a final resolution that will have all of the terms and conditions associated with the bonds for consideration, and that would make it final, assuming that that is approved.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Brian.
Okay, any other questions here?
Well, Brian, if you want to talk about our bond rating?
Yeah, we'll to that because we issued pretty late last calendar year. Standard & Poor's, or I guess they're more formally called just straight up S&P now. S&P has a questionnaire into us, so we can just provide some updates via completing the questionnaire rather than holding a formal conference call, which is usually the case. It typically takes about an hour and involves various departments providing input. So in this case, we'll be able to just complete the questionnaire, turn it back around to them, and they may have some follow-up in that regard, but it'll be a little bit less involved process.
Okay, any other questions for Brian? Well, thank you for being available to us.
Yeah, of course. And before I hit mute or stop video, I know Kurt had mentioned he had a question for me, but no, I don't see him.
I'm here, Brian. I guess, do you need an updated draw schedule, or is that draw schedule that I sent you work for what you have for a borrowing strategy?
The draw schedule is informative. If anything's materially changed from your perspective, we would certainly take an update. And some of that is just in an effort to also potentially estimate interest earnings for a number of reasons. One of which being typically you have to give an estimate to the bond attorney to complete their documentations, and then also we can then infer as well how much in interest earnings you might garner given the size of the project, and then those dollars are also similarly available for the project as well. Although we're not sizing the bonds assuming you're going to make interest in arriving at a net solution, we're including the total amount of the project in the borrowing and not relying on interest income to support the project itself.
Okay. The one that I gave you is still tracking consistent with what we're foreseeing, so I didn't know if you needed something that had a newer date on it or if that one worked for you, so.
It'll be fine. It's all an estimate at this point anyways, right? So we should be good to go.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anything else? Okay, moving on then to department reports, requests.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you all.
Okay, quarterly update, Paul.
It's me again, right?
Yep.
I have the office is going very well. We have an election tomorrow. Don't forget to go and vote. One thing that did come up was we got a public records request for the November 3rd election again from a gentleman. I don't know where he's from or what his intent is or anything like that. And most of the municipalities in our county also got the same requests. So it's something that's going to be a coordinated effort, but it turns out that just about every county in the state got the same records request. And we put together what it was going to cost, basically, and that's what other counties have done. And not a single county has heard back from him after we told them there would be
They had
a
to
cost
pay.
to find the stuff. So one county, it was over $6,000. For us, it was a little over between $1,000 and $1,500 for Trempealeau County. But then each municipality would have to have a charge on there too, because part of his request was stuff that I don't have, it's the municipal clerks have. So that was a kind of a fun thing, I guess you'd have to say. And I think on the next number B, 10B, I did a survey of the counties in the state, so I'll talk about that at that one, I think. We're also getting information on the ARPA, it's called. It's that new set of money that we're anticipating to get. We're going to get about $5.7 million, and we're going to have to start thinking about how we're going to spend it. We can't use it for reducing tax levy, but we have to spend it on something.
It can be spent on roads, though.
Well, that's not, yeah.
You can spend it on roads.
Right.
Why did I know that's where you guys were going to go?
Well, what about the debt on the building, too?
The what?
The debt on the building, can we?
I don't know, they haven't come
We
up
could
with a
use it for
total,
that?
but it could be.
Other counties have considered that from an infrastructure perspective, and I think from what I've been working with
Ah.
other counties is the details of where it can be spent are still a little gray.
Yep.
But that it sounds like building projects could definitely be a part of that, so.
It's capital improvement, so it can be used for
Yep.
capital
Right.
improvement.
Well, that sounds familiar.
Yeah,
We don't know when the money's coming yet.
and the final rules have not come out yet.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
They just said you cannot use it to lower your taxes or lower the tax rate. So,
Paul, what does that ARPA stand for?
Oh, I knew somebody had asked.
Is
me.
it federal money?
that's American.
It's all
Relief-
federal. It's-
American Relief Program.
But it's federal.
It's federal, yep.
Yeah. And it's supposed to be coming directly to the county, which
Well, and we were told at first that it would be half upfront, then we'd have to show them what we spent it on, so we get the other half. We have until 2024 to
Right.
spend the money, so it's not a hurry up and spend thing. But, so we do have little bits and pieces of information. I don't think I have anything on here that says what that
all
ARPA
the
stands for.
townships and all the municipalities are all also getting a chunk of this money. So.
Is this basically some COVID money or totally
It's come
different?
From
Well,
this last
Last-
deal they put out, the
okay.
1.7 trillion or 1.9,
It's-
whatever
it's-
that.
It's in that big $1 trillion.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's getting printed because I don't think there's a pile of money sitting somewhere.
Anything else on the quarterly update, Paul?
That's all I had. Remember to vote tomorrow.
Yep.
Isn't a lot of big stuff on the agenda, but I mean,
Okay,
He says humbly.
Humbly.
Town supervisor. town
well,
position.
nobody here lives in Blair, so.
What did I hear, Blair?
okay, moving on to item 10B then, resolution opposition to enforce of any legislation that would infringe upon the right of people to keep and bear arms. So I suppose that
I
should
think
be,
every member of the board has finally gotten this, haven't they? This thing.
I got a letter that was dropped off at my house, yep.
The original one I got was from this Frank or whatever, the guy that talked a lot at our mask meeting, they had that one night. But anyways, I just thought we'd put it on. Now, I'm not sure it should go to this committee or law enforcement. We had a discussion about that the other day with Brett, and law enforcement is gonna have it on their agenda too, so I don't know if it's an item we have to do here or not, but I'll let this committee decide.
And I do have comment when it's appropriate here.
Mr. Chair, actually, I would, I got a copy with stuff that was highlighted. I mean, I was mildly disturbed until I got to the the highlighted part, and then I was very disturbed by the language in the resolution. So it's basically asking us to break the law, to say that if there was a law that said, well, first of all, okay, I'm cheating here because I'm going to ask us to table it, but I don't. There's no indication as to what the state Senate legislation is. There's no language related to it, no reference to any numbers, so I have no idea what they're talking about.
You know, what we could do, George, I'm in agreement with you, first of all, but why don't we just let it die here in this committee and let it go to law enforcement instead of tabling it?
Yeah, if you table it, couldn't come back up, so.
Right.
Okay, I would be happy to do that.
I make a motion that we transfer this whole resolution to the law enforcement committee.
Can I share my concerns with you? Sure.
Okay, we have a motion to move this to Law Enforcement Committee.
I believe it's already on the agenda, isn't it?
You haven't done your agenda yet.
It will be. If it isn't, it will be, so.
Okay, because it came up already.
Yep.
Actually, this is over a year old, since I,
Oh,
yes,
oh.
since I've seen.
So it did-
2019.
So
when it
I've got a whole history here.
There's like 12 counties I know of that approved it or something like that, yeah.
We only have, can I throw that, did you
Yeah.
get a second yet?
No, we have not had
Oh,
a second yet.
Well, wait.
What was the?
I made a motion to move it to law enforcement.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? We'll take that vote and then we can talk about it a little.
No,
or let's
before
talk
you-
about it now.
okay.
Yep, okay.
I had mentioned this to Brett too, that I sent out a survey to all the counties in the state. Only 36, but that's over half of them, answered the survey.
That's half.
Well, yeah.
Right on the money.
We're in that, I was waiting for you to do something here, but anyway, only 10 have actually passed it. 26 have not. And a lot of them said they let it just die in committee, they're not gonna do any action on it. So that was kind of an interesting thing, and
Well, it's interesting because law enforcement is the one that's going to have to deal with this if we do pass it, so your input on this is going to be important to us.
Sure. So I guess I'll use this spot to comment. The Trempealeau County Associated Rod and Gun Club is bringing the resolution on to the Law Enforcement Committee. When I saw this on this agenda, I reached out to them to see if they knew anything about it coming up today, and they did not. So, and nor does the Patriot Group. So there's two different groups trying to come to a common ground here. I recommended to those that I talked to from both sides that they come together with the Associated Rod and Gun Club and come as one group to the Law Enforcement Committee so that there's only one resolution they're dealing with. And they were going to talk amongst themselves this weekend and try to come up with a consensus, and seeing nobody here today, I'm thinking maybe they did. So what the resolution does is basically, in a nutshell, it just says that the county board will not enact any laws that are contrary to the Second Amendment. It really isn't anything to do with enforcing anything that's going on. Right now, it's just that the county will not enact and demand that the sheriff enforce laws that are deemed unconstitutional. And those that are presenting the resolution may have more information on that at the Law Enforcement Committee. I am not the author of the resolution. I simply am receiving the letters. I have received 12 letters from citizens in the county that are requesting support for the resolution. I have not heard anything from any citizens against the resolution. I'm simply going to present that information at the Law Enforcement Committee. So, in a nutshell, that's what I know about it.
And Rick is the one that wrote this one, so you probably want to get in touch with him when he gets back from vacation to
He'll be back on the 8th.
8th, yeah.
Okay. I have not seen the formal resolution. I saw the generic one that they were working off of, so, but I have not seen the current written resolution.
Yeah,
Mr.
this
Chair,
one, if you want this one?
Yeah, I'll take
Okay, any other discussion?
Yeah, I just,
Go ahead.
I appreciate Brett's history on this. I would disagree with his interpretation of what the resolution is asking us to do, because it appears, and the way I read it is that we are being asked to interpret the Constitution, whether or not any laws have been passed or not. So it says here, for instance, the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors opposes the enactment of any legislation that would infringe upon the right of the people to lawfully keep and bear arms. And we would consider, in other words, if there was legislation that was enacted that somebody thought was infringing upon their right to keep and bear arms, that we would consider those laws to be unconstitutional, and then these next two resolves are the most disturbing ones. We would either instruct the sheriff not to enforce those laws which had been passed, or not fund any laws that had been legally passed. The entity that determines whether things are constitutional, in the state constitution, it's the state Supreme Court. In the federal constitution, it's the federal Supreme Court. The flavor of this reminds me very much of some of the folks who spoke in December, which is that they were interpreting laws and interpreting the Constitution and deciding what it is that was constitutional or not constitutional, and not the court systems, and then asking us to agree with them and to basically disagree with whatever laws had been passed. So I don't need to talk to you after, because that was what I was going to say, Brett. So I would disagree with your characteristic of we aren't the people who determine if something is constitutional or unconstitutional, nor are we the people or the body that decides what gets enforced and not enforced. There are certain ordinances and laws that the sheriff enforces. There are certain ordinances and laws that the zoning department enforces. There are certain ordinances and laws that the human services and the health department and so on and so forth, the DNR. In terms of, it's not the county board that enforces this, it's the sheriff's department, if there were a law related to that. So law enforcement's a good place for this to go.
And I assume that if this law is passed, there's going to be some legal battles with that.
Yeah, exactly. We
To
don't
make-
judge. We are not
if
the
something is
judges on what
constitutional or not.
we can lobby, as can anybody, the legislature, if they're, considering legislation, but without knowing what legislation they're talking about.
Okay, any other comments?
I'd like to comment.
Go ahead, Brett.
So, I don't know if you follow the news, but Representative Trag-Perginski has introduced legislation at the state level that does the same thing, basically asking that Wisconsin become a Second Amendment sanctuary state. It falls in line with what the counties what's happening at the county level, I believe, so.
Okay.
And I would like to go on record to state that at no time did I say that I interpret the Constitution. That is not what I said in my explanation. So I understand that the Supreme Courts interpret what is and isn't constitutional.
Okay. Anything else before we vote?
I have some remarks, but I prefer to save them for law enforcement.
Okay.
As I said, I have over a year history with this, so I've had a lot of time to think about this.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor of moving this to the Law Enforcement Committee signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, so that will take place then. Okay, moving on then to resolution to transfer $30,000 from the general fund for an x-ray machine. Jeremy?
I move to approve.
Should we read it or not necessary?
You spendthrift, you. Gosh.
Well, this is actually something that was supposed to have been done last year.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I know. Gotta dig you in a little bit.
Should it be read or not necessary?
Probably should be.
Okay, so, here's
It
the.
is money out of the general fund.
Yeah, okay. So we have a transfer or resolution transfer of $30,000 from the general fund to maintenance for the purchase of a new x-ray machine for the front door security screening. Whereas the security screening equipment at the front door of the courthouse is in need of replacement due to its age, its failing components, and the scarcity of parts available for repairs. And whereas the entrance needs to have proper and working equipment in order to adequately screen all individuals entering the courthouse. And whereas the purchase of a new x-ray machine is necessary in order to meet the current standards set forth by the county board to ensure weapons do not enter the courthouse. And whereas the maintenance department will coordinate the purchase of and installation of the new machine to be used at the current security checkpoint and to be moved to the new location upon completion of the new building. Now be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the transfer of $30,000 from the general fund into account 101.51600.314 for the purchase and installation of a new x-ray machine for security screening at the entrance to the building. And this was introduced by the Property Committee, Chuck Wallach, Randy Tullifson, Dan Schreiner, Tim Zieglen.
I think John already has
I
a
made the
motion.
motion.
And I seconded it.
Okay, motion to approve and second. Jeremy, need anything to say?
I was here if there was any questions about it. Like I said, the machine's over 20 years old. It's been failing for the current deputy at the front door now for a while. Because of the age of the machine, the parts there's really no replacement parts available, and the cost that I'm looking for would be for the purchase of a new one, the delivery, the setup, the training, and the disposal of the current unit.
Okay.
Plus it transfers to the new justice.
New building.
Correct.
The new entrance.
Any other,
It'll be the machine that goes in.
Yeah, I was going to, so there would be just one entrance?
Yep.
Right, okay.
any other comments, questions, concerns? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Okay,
Maybe this can come out of the bond money.
what's that?
No, it's coming out of the general fund.
General fund.
We need it right now, I think.
COVID money.
COVID money.
There you go.
Okay, moving on to item D and number 10, resolution carryover funds for Pro QA interface project. Tim Robertson. I don't see.
Unless he's that one on the bottom.
I'm here. Okay, Tim, go ahead. Okay, I suppose, let me read it first
Go,
again,
John.
and then we'll go from there.
John?
Okay, carryover funds for the Pro QA interface project from 2020 to
Sure, I get that
2021.
pen back.
Whereas the Trempealeau County Informational Technology Department was unable to complete a key project in 2020 due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas the key requirements to implement the Pro QA interface project in dispatch are in progress, and whereas the Informational Technology Department will need to purchase the previous approved interface and maintenance services in 2021 for the Pro Phoenix Pro QA interface. And whereas the approved amount from 2020 was and remains an estimate of $14,868 to implement, and now be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors approves the carryover of $14,868 from IT 2020 budget account 101.51450.210 to the 2021 budget for the technology upgrade in the Dispatch Pro QA interface, introduced by the Property Committee, Executive Finance Committee, let's see, Property Committee, Chuck Wallach, Dan Schreiner, Tim Zieglen, and Randy Tullifson.
Move for adoption.
Okay, move for adoption. Second. And we have a second. Okay. Tim, did you want to say anything?
No.
No, okay. Does anybody have any questions for Tim?
I will repeat the same statement I made just for clarification. You can't repeat things often enough. This is not a withdrawal from any fund. The money has already been allocated. The IT team was unable to complete this project because it became a lower priority with all the COVID problems, everything that had to be done with COVID. So it's a worthy project. It's already been approved. There's no new money needed for this. And by county board rules, the money would go back to the general fund if they don't spend it in time. So this is simply facilitates getting this done because the problem was the delay because of COVID. Same thing I said at Property Committee.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion passes then.
I'll give you that one.
Yep, okay, I'll get them all together here.
I
Oh.
just didn't want to get on camera, John.
You didn't want to get on camera, huh? Okay, moving on to
He's gonna be clicking on your camera.
item E, resolution for additional correction officer's position from our sheriff. Okay, so I'll read that and then we can go ahead with that. Okay, additional corrections officer positions in the sheriff's office. Whereas the Trempealeau County Jail administrative staff is responsible for the safety and security of the jail for both inmates and employees, and whereas in order to accomplish this, the jail is required to have a minimum of 3 employees on staff at all times in addition to the administrative staff. And whereas in order to maintain a minimum of 3 employees on staff at all times, to not include administrative staff, the actual number of employees needed per shift is 4 to account for sheriff relief factor. And whereas there's currently 1 sergeant to oversee the 4 scheduled shifts, and whereas whereas State Department of Corrections detention facilities specialists have consistently recommended improvements in the staffing level dating back to at least 2012, and whereas overtime expenditures exceed the budgeted amounts in 2020 by $112,185 and in 19 by $88,597.29, in 2018 by $38,211.67, and in 2017 by $24,204.81. And where there are select few current employees wanting to work overtime, and the few that have worked as many as 60 hours in one pay period, causing burnout and possible less willingness to work future overtime shifts. And whereas hiring part-time correctional officers is very challenging due to state certification requirements, and the 2 part-time officers we currently have are full-time officers in other counties. Whereas our staffing levels are captain, 1 lieutenant, 1 sergeant, 1 corrections officer. Well, okay, let me read that again. Captain 1, lieutenant 1, sergeant 1, correction officers 15, for a total of 18, and a 2020 staffing analysis completed with the assistance of Department of Corrections Detention Facilities Specialist Brad Hover is recommending Captain 1.24, Lieutenant 1.24, Sergeant 5.39, Corrections Officers 15.45, Programming Officers 1.24, for a total of 25. And whereas the inmate programming, including support staff programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous and Recovery Court, GED attainment, driver's licensing, parenting courses, etc., is vital to rehabilitation and is labor intensive, and whereas the current recommended staff levels would be necessary when we move into the new Justice Center. And whereas Sheriff Brett Semmingson is recommending the following staffing levels: Captain 1, Lieutenant 1, Sergeant 4, working sergeants, Correction Officer 16, and Programming Officer 1, for a total of 23 jail staff, an increase in 5 from current levels. And whereas beginning in late summer 2021, 2 of our current staff members will be assigned to transitioning into the new jail, which will require full-time dedication until the opening of the new facility. And whereas while the need to get a recommended staffing level is immediate, Sheriff Semmingson is requesting the addition of 2 correction officers with start dates of April 5th, 2021, so that they are trained and ready when transition team is assigned. Now be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors hereby approves 2 additional corrections officer positions for the Sheriff's Office effective April 5th, 2021. Now be it further resolved that the annual salary, including benefits, for these positions will be transferred from the general fund and to the Sheriff's Office budget as follows: $114,227.94. Account 52700-111. Salary, $74,848.80. Account 154, health insurance, $27,225.92. Account 152, WRS, $5,052.30. Account 151, Social Security, $4,640.62. Account 153, Medicare, $1,085.30. And account 346, uniform allowance, $1,375. Okay, and this was acted on by the Law Enforcement Committee?
And personnel bar.
And Personal Bargaining Law Enforcement Committee was Ron Johnson, Sally Miller, Tim Ziegler, Rick Nemitz, and Randy Tollefson. And Personal Bargaining Committee, Kellen Nelson, George Brandt, John Austin, Jeannie Nutter, and Ron Johnson.
Move for approval.
Okay, motion to approve,
Second.
and we have a second.
And I have one comment and one question.
Okay, go ahead, Tim.
Did you get my second, Lynn? Lynn?
Yeah.
Okay, must be deaf on this here. One comment, in the middle of the resolution, Chairman Wallach mentioned Brad Hoover. Brad Hoover is the state jail inspector. I mean, there's a long list. He's not just a specialist, he is the state jail inspector. He's been working very closely with the sheriffs and the sheriff's team, and so his recommendations carry quite a bit of weight. And the other, this is a question actually, even though I've already seen this at law enforcement, but Sheriff, what do you have in mind? This is, these additional two positions are required because of the necessity or the fact of a transition team. I guess I've never asked, how is the transition team going to work? What did you have in mind for that? I should have asked that a month ago.
Okay, so I'm gonna, I'll answer it the best I can, then I'm gonna defer to Kurt for some follow-up on this.
Okay.
But the transition team, when we move from the new jail, or the old jail into the new jail, all of our policies have to be updated to, and there's 400 and some pages of policy, and it's to control every door, to, which doors will operate in conjunction with other doors. How is our day reporting going to work? How is our booking process going to work? Every facet of the operation of the jail will have to be put down in policy and procedure form. And then the transition team also works or monitors or however with the construction to make sure that the DOC codes are being met. I guess, and from here I'm going to defer to Kurt so that he can elaborate on that even more.
Sure. Transition team is a process that we've implemented on all of the jail projects that we have in the state of Wisconsin. And to summarize it in kind of a snapshot is it's members of the team that are actually going to operate the facility that are there from the ground up. Okay, so I've told Brett, and I think that's why he's got the timing, that they necessarily don't need to be there the day we're turning the first shovel of dirt. But when we start to put walls in, we actually share all of the shop drawings that come from all of the components that are in the building. Security, electronics, electrical, plumbing, anything that is driven by what they have to write a policy for, so they know the inner workings of that jail. What that transition team does is they talk about the function and the operation, not only with our team that's constructing it, but then they are a liaison to go back to their staff and then to start to explain to the team what's being done in that building. They're writing a policy, they're writing an entirely new policy because it's an entirely new building. And then when we have what's called a shakedown period, that when the building is substantially complete, it will sit without any inmates in it for 4 to 6 weeks, but it'll function as though there are inmates in there to make sure that there are no breaches in regards to the safety and security that's in there. It's kind of like a dry run for a month and a half. Those individuals are the ones that actually start to do the training for all of the new staff. So they're being trained for the period of time while we're constructing it, actually writing the policies along with the DOC, and then they're training the staff to be able to say, here's our new building, here's the inner workings. the things that I've seen on projects that have a transition team versus a building that does not have a transition team is day and night in regards to knowing how the facility is going to work and function, and then the feedback that they give to not only the design team but our contractors. So we will walk them. We actually house them in a trailer right next to our job trailer. So there is like a relationship that's built with our people. So they're out there day to day, seeing what's happening. We tour them through the campus while it's being constructed, so they identify what all of those components are that are in there, and it's been very successful. So.
Thank you.
Those people will then know the innermost workings of the whole security system.
Absolutely.
You know, in the Middle Ages, when they built the castle, the guys who built all the secret passages in the doorways and everything, you know, when the castle was done,
They got killed?
they disappeared. Disappeared without a trace. Without a trace.
No, the main point.
So I mean, you know,
Probably
these
gonna have a hard time
hotels, you
getting
know.
Now I gotta look for 2 new team members, I thought.
Yeah, you better not, don't put that in.
No, one of the cool things, and I know I'm getting into the details, but when you start to get into master control and the security electronics, it's actually a large touch screen that controls the entire jail and all of the functions. Having those individual actually with the programmers in regards to how things are laid out, it goes without saying of how great that works in regards to being able to then train the staff that are there. It's just a seamless process from construction to when you occupy, so.
You got the team picked?
I do.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and fortunately, they've already been working with the project all the way up until now, so.
I want to comment on that because Brett has had them there since day one through all these design meetings, and the individuals that have been there have been people that are vocal, they ask questions, they make comments. They're very important to what's happening there with not only the design but going into construction. So I think he's picked some great people to be on that team. So
I have a question for you, sure.
go ahead.
So is this going to help the overtime situation? Or not really, is it, or?
Yes, so, 2020, we're 112,000 over.
Right.
It's hard to count 2020 for anything, really,
Okay.
because of COVID.
Right.
But, like I said, when employees, when they use their vacation, their holiday, and their sick leave, and especially in 2020, all we have is part-time to rely on, or overtime to rely on, because we only have 2 part-time personnel, and in 2020, they couldn't work in other jails, so we didn't have any in 2020. That's why that number's so high. Our only option to fill right now vacant shifts, they call it the relief factor when you do a staffing analysis, is by overtime. So so the minimum staffing on a shift is 3, plus your administrative staff. If we staffed it according to the staffing analysis, there would be 4. If one would take off on a holiday or a vacation day, we wouldn't necessarily have to fill that one with overtime. So we'd still be adequately staffed. So I would say, based on that, yes, overtime should be reduced, and we would rely more on additional compensation for part-time and when we would need it, because it would be less need for filling those positions. Now, what that number is, that it would be reduced, I have no idea, but at Law Enforcement Committee, Supervisor Nimitz brought that up, and he said, that's one thing he commented is, wouldn't a position help reduce in overtime? And in the jail, it would perhaps take more than one, because we have a male-female relationship that has to be met. But he was right. Overtime costs are high up there, and it is in large part because we're short-staffed. So, and we have minimum shifts that we have to fill, or minimum staffing levels we have to keep. So,
But I guess my question is that these 2 new staff is basically a total different because of this
so
new program with the
so
new facility.
One thing I have to comment is the current staffing analysis that was done. It's done using a National Institute of Corrections model with the help of Mr. Hoover. It's for our current jail. It's not for the new jail. So they're telling us right now that we're 7 positions short in our current jail. So the day the new jail opens, if we were fully staffed in our current jail, the new jail would not create the need for additional staff. But these two positions here are critical now because we're going to lose two more. We're already short-staffed. We're going to lose two more because we have to dedicate them to this transition team. So I'm asking for those two positions now. The out-of-county housing portion of my budget in 2019 and 2020 was $230,000. In 2021, the county board brought it down to $150,000 with notice that I come back for a resolution when I have to exceed that, and I will exceed that $150,000 this year. So a portion of the new positions will be offset with the savings of the out-of-county housing. While the need is immediate, we're shorthanded right now. I'm trying to soften the blow by waiting until we get closer to opening day so that those costs can offset more rather than put it all on the levy. But these two positions, we're got to get going here now on them. The remainder of them would perhaps come later this fall as a budget item for next year. The date on there is April 5th. I'm going to take the blame on that because I wasn't following how closely the committees met here a month ago, and I missed a committee meeting. So obviously, we're going to be about a month later for the start date. It won't be April 5th. It'll be, we have to hire, and we have a list to hire from, and we'll get going. It's going to be about a month later to implement it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Is it possible in the new facility you could need less people or isn't that a possibility?
I would have to say no, just because you have to have one person works in the master control, one person is a rover on the floor, one person is your booking officer and also assists on the floor. So the master control person can never leave that position. And if the floor person needs assistance, we have to have that third. So those are the three mandatory positions all the time. And that's in our current jail. It'll be in the new jail. And the addition of that fourth position allows for additional like programming or, there's going to be movement of inmates to and from court. Hopefully the new jail is, and it's proven, I believe, and Kurt maybe can elaborate, is more efficient on inmates are allowed to move themselves around, so you don't have that labor-intensive piece of moving inmates from place to place. They're allowed to do that themselves, the ones that, you can trust. So a long answer to your question is no, the new jail will not reduce what our current jail should have. If we were correctly staffed for our current jail, it would not reduce.
Okay.
But it will not increase either, so.
Because that's one of the comments I heard from
Yeah.
people, is we're going to build a new jail. That means they're going to have to hire all kinds of new people.
I think the one thing that I would just want to address on that is that when we looked at the sheriff's current staffing analysis historically back to 2012, I actually think it was earlier than that from what I had seen, is that it was understaffed substantially.
Okay.
And like I shared with Brett, is that's going to be the narrative coming out of this, is, oh, they're going to build a jail and now they need more staff. That's not the case. Is that what you can do right now with the number of beds that you have and the way that the building is designed is you can have double the number of inmates that you currently have without any additional
increasing
staff if it was staffed properly the way that it should be right now. But because you've been so understaffed, it's going to, he's skewing it. I mean, they're talking there's seven individuals that are there. It looks like, wow, we're the new jail's causing all that. That's not the case. We've designed to a 3-post design. It's the most efficient design that you're going to find to be able to house those inmates. So that narrative or the question related that the new jail is causing the staff, it's not. It's because you were understaffed
Also understaffed.
for probably
Okay.
over a decade.
That's good to know.
So, yeah.
So, but, obviously we can hope all we want, but a substantial portion of the cost of 5 new employees is being spent right now on out-of-county housing as well. So, and I do have some realigning ideas using current staff within the whole sheriff's office as well. So, I promise I'm going to minimize this to the extent possible, but to get us up to the staffing levels that we need to be at today. Just kind of holding off as long as I can to avoid that mass draw or mass tax on the budget, so.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay,
That's the original there.
done with that.
That got signatures
Yep.
already on it?
Yep.
Oh, why didn't I get that one? Interesting, okay.
Okay, moving on to our last of the department requests, resolution to increase hours of TV studio employees. Okay, that resolution then, whereas the TV studio department has been live streaming and recording most county committee and all county board meetings, particularly since the pandemic started, in order to comply with open meeting law requirements. And whereas community events and community procedures are starting to return to their pre-pandemic levels, and the department staff are facing challenges meeting all of its obligations. And whereas the TV studio has received feedback from citizens and staff requesting and encouraging that the TV studio continue coverage of the county meetings even after in-person meetings resume. And whereas the program coordinator position and the production coordinator position in the department are each limited to 28 hours per week. And whereas roughly 10 years ago, both of these positions were full-time at 40 hours per week. And whereas full-time staffing in the department would allow for the continuing coverage of the county board and committee meetings in addition to community events and community-produced shows. Now be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors hereby approves increasing the hours of the program coordinator position and the production coordinator position to 40 hours per week for each position beginning April 26, 2021. Now be it further resolved that the increased annual salary, including benefits for these positions, will be transferred from the general fund into the TV studio budget as follows. $48,289.26. Account 55610-111. Salary, $19,239.40. Account 154, health insurance, $26,259.03. Account 152, WRS, $1,298.67. Account 151, Social Security, $1,213.10. And account 153, Medicare, $278.98. Okay, that.
For adoption.
Okay, move for adoption.
I'll second.
We have a second.
I have some questions.
Okay, and then we can go into discussion. Go ahead.
So with the amount of meetings that we've been covering, we've also had a lot of community members getting back in touch with us about bringing their shows back and doing community coverage of events. And we are finding it very difficult to fit in everything with our 2 part-time staff and myself. And I was talking to our program coordinator, and he stated that about 10 years ago they were both full-time. They were reduced to part-time because of the recession. And so we'd like to just get back to where we used to be.
Okay, any other questions? Tim?
Yeah, I wasn't here 10 years ago, but the only reservation I have about this, Derek, is that then these 2 positions become full-time positions. You'll be asking for the money in the budget, and I'm still remembering how difficult it was every budget, and how difficult it was the last budget to find money for these additional employee hours. So, and this committee will be confronted with those decisions about where are we going to get the money for this stuff. So that doesn't mean you don't have the need. But it means that it's another strain on the county's operating budget.
If I can, I've been part of this, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I've been part of this discussion now for well over a decade, and it seems that this being about the smallest department with the smallest budget, it was always easier to take money away from the TV studio if for no other reason than because it was not statutorily required. What these guys have done with the limited resources they've had, and especially since since COVID started is astounding in terms of, we would not be able to do government without them at this point. If we didn't have a TV studio to make it possible for us to do open meetings, we'd have been in a world of hurt. And they've really gone over and above. And this is a resource that, well, like Derek is saying, people want to get their shows back on the air. They want to start producing things. There's stuff going on around the county that everybody else needs to know about as well. So it's, what, $29,000? 30,000, what is it? 48,000. Oh, okay, well, anyway, $50,000. We can do this. This is not a stretch. I think we can do this.
We did have some reserve as a committee, but we wanted it to go here and get some comments. I appreciate that comment, George.
I got a couple, one comment is, how is health insurance more than the salary?
Well, I was looking at my budget.
That's because they become full-time and qualify.
Yep,
They
and
have
I
no
also,
insurance right
I
now.
also looked at my budget, and they only budgeted for one part-time person to have health insurance.
Okay.
One of them doesn't currently take it, but if they go full-time, we should at least budget for it, and if they don't take it, it goes right back to the general fund.
And the other thing is, we've been talking, like highway department is talking about going back out to the highway department instead of having them. Isn't that going to happen with most committee meetings, that somewhere down the road, we won't have to be televising every committee meeting?
Well, we won't have to.
I'm assuming.
It would be a choice that we could do.
Yeah. I'm assuming that's going to happen, so that should give you some relief. The other thing I'd like to, is there some way you can help increase funds for the TV studio to add, or?
Well, right now, I'm already responsible for raising $31,000 a year. So that's already a struggle to try to meet that amount.
Okay.
Yeah, there are the auctions and other donations and so forth, so it does happen. This has been the argument for as long as I've been on the county board, and if I can, what does John say every time there's a budget request? COVID.
Right.
And this is infrastructure. Wade Britzius made the case years ago. This is as much infrastructure as roads are, and it's an information highway. Okay, trite term at this point, but that's what we are as far as the TV studio goes. So if we're interested in building infrastructure and capital improvements, in a sense, this is what the TV studio is and what makes it possible to people communicate around here. That's my spiel.
It is kind of unique, for a small county. We're probably the only one in the state with a TV studio for a
Yes.
small county.
But I think that's the most progressive thing we do.
Yeah.
Honest to God, I mean, I was going to argue against you, or a little bit against you. I think the highway committee meeting should be televised. I mean, they should all, every committee meeting should be televised. And it really, even though most of the time there are people watching, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
There
Oh,
are.
yeah.
There may be, there may not be a lot of them, but they know how to use the telephone. And,
People use television.
yeah, and it really helps to increase transparency is another buzzword, but it does help everybody. It helps dispel the notion that we're doing things in secret, and spending money behind everybody's back. And that's
The other reason for highway was because, once in a while, I should have had this with, but he didn't, but he can run into his office if we're there and get that info right away. That's it's just for convenience sake for highways. It's much easier for us to go out there than it is for him to drag everything he needs to a meeting.
How do you get those trucks downstairs?
Yeah.
Put them in the elevator.
When will a little bit off the topic, when will the wage study will that be completed before the next budget?
Yes.
It should be.
Hopefully. Yeah, by early October.
All right.
I don't have a problem with it either, so I'm just brought up this point.
Go ahead. Doc, you had a question, or you just?
No, I guess I'm,
Ready-
I
ready
will
to
make a
vote.
comment. I agree with Tim that we do have, and we're gonna add this staff. We should televise everything we can. I totally agree.
If we're gonna do it right. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, so that motion passes.
Thank you.
I don't remember you coming to personal bargaining.
That's next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
This will go on next month's
Oh, okay.
county board, yeah.
Okay, Paul, you get one more shot on stage. Yep. COVID update.
We are, I guess I said this a couple, oops, I'm not on yet. I've said this a couple of months now in a row, but we still haven't submitted our first submission for FEMA, but we are really close to doing that now. It's sitting at about $615,000, actually $615,458.90, and I balance with integrity. That's the good part about it. So we both have the same numbers. There'll be
Integrity is a group.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We
Yeah.
trust his integrity.
The integrity group, yes, okay, yes. Because not everything has been submitted by me. There's been other departments that have submitted on their own. And then I have to go backwards and find all that information, because we have to show that it's been paid for with a check number and a date that the check was written and all that, so that when FEMA comes and does their audit, we'll be ready for them that way. So $615,458.90 is what will be submitted now in the next couple weeks to FEMA. We are going to get 100% back, is what FEMA told us now. We've already started putting together bills again for the second submission, because we have until September to get everything sent in. And I think I'm up to about $60,000 or $70,000 in bills already again for the second.
Say that again, please. What was the dollar amount there?
60 to 70.
60 to 70,000 already
Okay, okay.
in bills for this second submission. So the 615, we'll be getting that off in the next week or so. I think our next meeting is Monday, this coming Monday. And then everything should be finalized so that Integrity will submit that on our behalf.
Paul, that'll clear this up and put that money back in the general fund, basically.
Yes,
That'll
all
allow
of the FEMA money, just like the CARES money.
Right.
I was going to talk about that next, but anyway, the FEMA money will then all go back into the general fund.
Okay.
And the same thing with the CARES money that we've received, because we got our $480,000, which was our allotment, and then they gave us an extra $51,000, so that's another $540,000 that will also go back into the general fund. So that comes to $1.155 million. That'll go back into the general fund.
So things will be easy in the fall. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Everybody
raises
for
everybody.
Well, then
Don't hit the word.
I'll throw one little other tidbit in there then, because, for the 2020 budget, we had to take $230,000 out of the general fund
Right.
to make the budget. For 2021, we only took $42,000 out of the budget to make the budget. So I'm hoping that number will go down next
Oh,
time.
it has to, right.
We'll
There's
see though,
future
with all
coming
these
here.
increased,
COVID isn't gonna last forever. Well, we hope it doesn't last forever, right.
just everybody get your shot and be done.
I've got one so far.
I've got two.
I'm in
I've had
between.
two.
I've gotten one, and I don't know if I'm going back. Well, I guess I will. I really got sick.
Oh,
Did you
really?
get the Moderna?
Usually on the second one.
The
I mean,
Moderna?
Everybody's getting sick on the second one, so I'm thinking I'm keeling over on the second one.
Was it Moderna? Is that what you had,
Yes.
Moderna? Okay. My
I
daughter,
was in bad shape for 4 days.
my daughter had the
What
second
is?
Moderna on Friday, and yesterday she was bad. She was sick.
The second one or first?
Yeah.
Second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They said the second one is the one that
That's
she,
what's scaring me. I can't imagine getting much worse
Yeah,
than the
probably
rest of the
wherever you're
first one.
weakest, it's gonna hit you. That's what it is.
Okay, anything else, Paul, about COVID?
that should be enough for now. Yep.
Okay, our last item then is
two
to
shots
set
now.
our next meeting date.
The tech one didn't bother.
Is the third, I think the third is a Monday, isn't it? Looks like it. Saturday's the
Oh,
first, Sunday's the second, Monday's the third. Does anybody have a full? Suppose we could.
That looks like it to me. Paper,
Same time, same station?
oh, yes, WCT.
Yep, it is May 3rd, yep. 8 o'clock's good for everyone then? Okay, our next meeting then is Monday, May 3rd at 8 o'clock. Anything else then? Okay, if not, I'll adjourn the meeting at 9:46.
All right, 26.
20?
20, oh, excuse me, I'm looking at the hour. Yep, 26, yep.
We gotta use the bathroom. Okay, I'll be up.
So you got sick on your first one?
My first one, now that's a scary.